Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists. My name is Kyle,
My name is James.
and we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. Hey, James. How you doing?
How's it going, Kyle?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Hey, Kyle, recently I've been getting a few new followers on Letterboxd.
Okay.
It's pretty fun because I've been reviewing on Letterboxd for 8 years, maybe 9 years, which is a long time. And when I say reviewing, I mean like, a couple sentences to maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
They're not essays or anything. They're quick thoughts that I really only do for movies I've never seen before. If it's a rewatch, it's probably not even getting a review unless something major changed. Anyway, the most fun part is when people like a review that I wrote in 2014.
Like a back catalog one.
Yeah. Have you ever written something that you honestly don't remember writing?
Yeah.
And then you're reminded of it?
I get the same thing that happens. Thank you. I will get like a notification that someone liked a review, and it's one that I wrote back in, maybe not 2014, but I wrote several years ago.
Sure.
Like, oh, they really that spoke to them for whatever reason. And it's buried. Like, I don't know how they found it. It's not like it's a top review on the movie or anything like that.
Sure. Well, I mean, on the film page, it has a section for top reviews, and then it has a section for top reviews from people you follow.
Oh, maybe
It's
that's
possible that
it.
person follows you, and even if it's only got like a few likes, you'll be the top
Yeah.
person. You might be the only person that they follow that has ever seen some of those movies. So, I got one just before we started recording for 5 Easy Pieces from 1970.
Oh,
So my question to you is, you've seen 5 Easy Pieces.
I have
right?
not seen 5 Easy Pieces.
What? How? Thought you were a movie list guy.
I'm not as dedicated as like Zach is. Like,
Right, but isn't that one on like the top 100 American made films? Or I mean, it's on like a major list, not like a minor list.
Let me pull it up. You keep talking, and I'll tell you what list 5 Easy Pieces is on.
Okay. Do you know anything about 5 Easy Pieces?
I know it's a game on the Cinereelists. Oh,
Okay.
it's only on 14 lists. If it's
Right, but what are those lists? I want to hear if they're like the really big lists or if they're like, okay, nobody would be doing that list anyway.
it's on the Best Picture nominee list. It's on the Roger Ebert's Greatest Movie list. It's on the here it is, Sight and Sound. Yeah, it's on the Sight and Sound Greatest of All Time list. But that one's also incredibly long. It's also on They Shoot Pictures, Don't They? 1000. So those are probably, if you're looking at like what are the two big Uber lists, Sight and
Right.
Sound and They Shoot Pictures are them.
But it's not on like the top 100 American films list or something like that. American Film Institute list or
No, it's on the BFI Top 100 Road Movies. But no, it is not on any of the AFI lists. It's in the Library of Congress. So yeah, 14 lists is pretty impressive.
Sure.
I'm still working on movies that are like on 20 or more lists, so I'm not quite. I'm working my way down through those big ones.
Knowing nothing about the movie other than it's on those lists, by star ranking, what do you think I gave 5 Easy Pieces?
Knowing that it's a list movie from the 70s, I see it's 98 minutes long. I'm gonna guess you gave it 2.5.
Not bad. 2.
Okay. 2. All right.
Pretty
All
close. You want to hear my short review?
Please.
5 Easy Pieces, 1970, starring Jack Nicholson. Why this is considered a classic, I have no idea, as I found 5 Easy Pieces to be boring and pointless. Beyond the nothing story, you have Jack Nicholson doing nothing exceptional, nothing to note artistically or visually, just overall blah. The best I can say is that the film is a good watch to fall asleep to, as it took me 3 nights to complete. How this was Roger Ebert's favorite movie of 1970 is beyond me. It must have been slim pickings that year. 35 likes.
35. Wow. So enough of your followers have seen 5 Easy Pieces and probably don't like it as much as you do to get 35 likes out of it. That's an impressive amount.
I get. Well, when you like things on Letterboxd, you only like them if you agree with it.
No, for the most part, unless it's a really good hot take.
Sure.
But yeah, I also I don't like a lot of reviews on Letterboxd in general.
Interesting. You mean you literally don't like them, or you just don't click the button?
I don't click the button.
Gotcha.
I'm not a good social media giver.
I was the same way. And then maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I looked around and I said, everybody else is throwing out likes like it doesn't matter. Why can't I? Why can't I just frivolously like something just because?
Because then it's frivolous. If you like everything, then it's meaningless.
Right, but you're the only person on the planet holding out. I guarantee you, holding back your likes. You know what I mean? You are the only person on the planet who cares whether you like something or not. Right?
I mean,
Nobody cares. If you were to like everything that even barely held your attention for a few seconds tomorrow, nobody would notice a difference between every other day of your life.
true. No one's be like, oh wow, that Kyle Peterson, he's really liking everything now.
Yeah, all of a
Okay.
sudden he went crazy. He opened the floodgates.
I don't know. I'm just not good about liking things. Like I'm on all the social medias. I scroll no problem, and I'll hit the little heart button every now and then, but just not.
I challenge you
Okay.
for the next week. The moment you even get the tiniest inclination that you enjoyed what you're looking at, you like it. No hesitation.
No hesitation.
All right?
On Letterboxd or on all social media?
All social media. It's very freeing. Because I used to treat it so seriously. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm only gonna like things if I truly love them. Come on, it's just a button on a social media app.
And when this
Not
person gets
that big a deal.
notification that Kyle liked it, they're gonna be floored.
That's the other thing too, is people like likes. It makes them feel good.
Yeah.
It costs you nothing.
Yeah, but I don't
Like
want to
it.
inflate egos.
You're not inflating. You're inflating egos when you're liking something from the Kardashians. If it's some Joe who has no likes, you're not inflating their ego. You're
Well, if they have no
encouraging
likes,
them.
yeah, I'm probably making their day better.
Yeah, you're encouraging them. Yeah. All right. I love it though when people surface old reviews. I don't remember 5 Easy Pieces. I don't remember writing this review. I'm not mad at the movie, obviously, but you'd think maybe I was.
You don't
based
hold
on
a
that review.
grudge.
Right. For sure.
Yeah, I just wonder what brought them to that review, because it's not your most recent one. So for whatever reason, they stumbled
Absolutely
upon it.
not. This was watched October 30th, 2014.
That is early days of Letterboxd.
Yeah, I don't know when Letterboxd started. 2012?
Yeah, I don't think I jumped on till around 2013, 2014 myself.
I don't think they've had a 10-year anniversary. They'd make a big deal out of that, right? Somewhere.
They would. I don't believe they've done it yet. So
Yeah, so that was maybe the first year or so.
we're getting there.
I remember when Letterboxd was invite only.
Yeah, did you invite
That
me
was wild.
and Zach? I don't remember.
I don't know.
I don't remember either.
that either.
It's been a while since I first signed up. When I first got Letterboxd, I
Mhm.
would only log movies that I had watched. I did not
Use
backlog
it as an
anything
archive. Yeah.
or archive. Yep. And then at one point, I was like, "This is," because I had other things. Like I had IMDb, I had iCheck Movies.
Mhm.
So I'm like, do I need another way to log all the movies I've seen? And then as Letterboxd got better and improved, and I started using it more and more, I'm like, okay, it's worth archiving everything. And I even went so far as to go through my iCheck Movies checks, which go back to 2009,
Oh,
and
nice.
correlate those dates with my diary and Letterboxd. So I have a
Sure. So it's
not
date
complete.
accurate up to 2009.
Yeah, I mean, it's not complete because I wasn't
mean-
checking everything on iCheck Movies, and I was also checking things. I was back checking on there at the same time. But I would say it's a
Sure.
pretty good snapshot of what my film viewing habits have been since 2009.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that mine is probably 95% complete in movies that I've watched across my lifetime.
Yep.
There's still that 5% out there from when I was a kid that occasionally I'll discover a movie and I'm like, I have seen this before.
Oh yeah.
Like there was this Disney movie with Jodie Foster called like Candlestick or Candle Shoe or something like that. It's a
Okay.
live action Disney movie, and I forget where I saw a scene of it, probably YouTube, some clip on YouTube, and I was like, I have seen this movie.
Yeah.
I know. I tracked it down and I watched it, and it was like I took acid or something. I was having a flashback because I remember, I'm sure my sisters watched it on the Disney Channel or something, and I had completely forgotten all memory of it. And yet every frame of it came back to me as I was watching it.
Mhm.
And so I checked it on Letterboxd, and I was like, I guarantee there's another 5% of my total watch history that just exists in the back of my brain waiting to be reawoken.
Oh, for sure. That happened to me with Chips the War Dog when we did our top 10
Mhm.
animal performances. As I was thinking of that list, I was like, "Oh, I used to watch this movie when I was a kid about like this dog in the army," and I had to do some googling,
Mhm.
and that's why I discovered it and watched the trailer. I'm like, "Yep, I've seen this," and then had to like go on Letterbox and find deep in the year 1990 where they had that buried somewhere in there.
While we were sitting here, somebody else liked another old review of mine.
Oh, you're just getting the likes left and right now.
Have you ever seen my own private Idaho?
No, I've heard of it though.
Gus Van Sant,
Yep.
Keanu Reeves. What do you think? Based on what you know of my own private Idaho, what did I give my own private Idaho?
Um, I think you like Gus Van Sant.
Okay.
I'm gonna say you gave it 4 stars.
Man, you are just a half star off. 4.5
Oh
stars.
wow, okay.
And I give it the ever elusive heart.
See that right? It's I don't throw on those likes even for movies that I do like on Letterbox that easily.
You want to hear this review?
Please,
Here we go.
yes.
My own private Idaho, 1991. This movie is really gay. 36 likes.
But gay as in like the LGBT sense, not the like this is stupid sense,
I
correct?
mean, spoiler alert. Jeez.
I'm just hoping, James, that you've evolved to the point where we no longer use gay in that context.
I know. I hate. You know, you can make your own judgments against me if you want to.
Well, if you, I may be judging you very harshly soon, so we'll see.
You haven't even seen the movie, so how do you know? You'll have to watch it and see if you agree with me.
Okay,
My
you're
private
right.
Idaho is really gay.
All right, I'll let you know. You know, if you see that like pop up, you'll know that I saw it and I agree.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Speaking of seeing it and agreeing, we're gonna do a list this week.
We are.
It's a list that we do often on this podcast. It's a list that this podcast actually invented in a way. It's called our top 10 last 10.
Top 10, top 10, and top 10, and last 10, and last 10, and a last 10, last 10, and top 10, top 10, and top 10, and top 10, and last 10, last 10, and last 10, and last 10, and top 10.
Which is what exactly, Kyle?
Top 10 last 10 is where we take the last 10 movies we've seen and we rank them against each other and make a list of number 10 being our least favorite of those 10 and number 1 being the most favorite.
Couldn't have said it any better. Let's jump into it with the words of a very wise man.
Let's rank some movies.
Let's go. It's the top 10 last 10.
Those are words to live by.
For sure. All right. Why don't I go first? That way you
Please.
can have the last word.
Look, I get the hammer.
You get the hammer. Yep.
Yes.
My number 10 is a movie I don't really need to talk about much other than what has come after this movie, which confuses me. It's 2021's X. Just the movie's called X. It's from A24.
Yeah.
It's a horror movie. It's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre-y, where it's like this group of younger people, younger meaning like 20s, maybe early to mid 20s. There's a range. That are going to shoot an adult film, and they have rented a room on the property of a farm, and the people who own the farm are elderly people, and they have not told the elderly people why they're renting the location on the farm. and it's set in the 70s, I think, or maybe the early 80s. I don't remember. No, 70s. And they start doing their thing, and the owners of the farm find out what's going on, and they are like hardcore fundamentalists.
Mm.
And it's a slasher movie
Yeah.
released last year, but in that style of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type stuff. But I will say, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies like really go there, especially like the older ones from the 70s. They have a lot of gore. They're really grimy and gross, whereas X is like a pristine film, modern filmmaking and modern horror that doesn't, like, if you watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just watching it makes you feel dirty because of the style of filmmaking,
Hmm.
like the Gonzo style with really super low budget, grainy film stock that they filmed it on. This just kind of gives you like a glossy feeling that's trying to emulate that without going like full emulation, which kind of annoyed me. Also, what annoyed me is that Ty West directed this, and he directed The House of the Devil and The Innkeepers and the Western In the Valley of Violence, which are all movies that I enjoy, and all, well, at least House of the Devil and The Innkeepers are like new horror where it's like they don't have to be gross about things. They can still leave you in suspense, freak you out a little bit, but they're like new twists, like they're Babadook style
Yeah.
stuff versus hack and slash type stuff. And X just reminds me of hack and slash stuff that I've seen before, and I was bored by it. What fascinates me is he filmed another movie while he was filming this one without like budgeting it. He basically just like slid in a bunch of scenes hoping that he could make a movie out of it, and then he did. And now they're releasing that movie. A24 is releasing that movie, and they've announced a sequel to that one.
Oh, is this Pearl and Maxine?
Yes.
I remember seeing the trailer for Pearl actually before another movie I'm going to see on my list here, and I just registered as, oh, this is a strange looking movie. And
Mhm.
then I recently saw on Twitter that now there's like this X trilogy that involves Pearl and now this other movie, Maxine. And I'm intrigued, but it sounds like this is not my alley though of movies I actually want to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm Pearl, played by Mia Goth in X, is by far the most interesting character in the movie.
Mhm.
So I understand why he went that direction. And Pearl itself looks like a send up of other things. So I'm curious to see the reception at least to that. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll check it out. If the reception is good. Although a lot of people liked X, and I was like, I don't get it. Why are you guys all up in this movie when it's just like derivative of everything else that came before it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It tried to emulate those things without doing anything new with it at all. And I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm over it. Yeah, so X, 2 stars, my number 10.
All right. My lists are all 3 stars and above. I've seemed to be on a run of just liking movies that I'm watching recently, or maybe I'm just forcing myself to like them. I'm not sure. So I don't hate any of these movies, but I definitely like others more than some. So my least favorite, but still one that I enjoyed or I sat through, was my number 10, DC League of Super Pets. Now I
Did
did
you
not
see
just,
this in a movie theater?
I did see this in a movie theater, and
Was anybody eating an apple?
not to my knowledge.
Okay.
But now I'm very aware of apples and backpacks, so
All
I
right.
will. I'll let you know in the future.
Sure.
This is not a movie that I just decided to take myself to. I took my son to it. He was excited to see this because it's superheroes, and more importantly, it's the pets of superheroes.
Mhm.
In this movie, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson plays Crypto, who is Superman's dog, and Superman and the rest of the Justice League get captured. So Crypto, as well as a bunch of shelter pets who gain super abilities, have to rescue the Justice League from, I think it's an evil gerbil or hamster. I know in the movie, the bad animal made a big point of being, I'm this one, not that one. I just don't remember if it was, I'm a gerbil, not a hamster, or I'm a hamster, not a gerbil. So, and I mean, in this movie, for a kid movie, it was completely watchable.
Mhm.
Animation's cute. There are, dog jokes, and it's silly, and there are superhero antics. The animation is good though. I liked that. I do have a habit now of falling asleep during the third act of these animated movies.
Hmm.
So it's happened several times, and I'm not sure if it's just because they get boring towards the third act or because I'm just in a dark theater with a movie I don't really care about, so I kind of nod off. Maybe it's just me becoming an older dad
It's probably a combination of the
of
two.
all the yes, because I don't
Yep.
fall asleep with other movies, but well, I go
Mhm.
see these kid movies with my son, and I'm out by the third act. So
Yeah, and you're probably watching them at a time when you wouldn't be sleeping anyway, whereas the ones you're interested in, you should be falling asleep because it's probably later at night.
right,
I
exactly, yeah.
imagine. Yep.
The if I had one complaint about this movie, Kevin Hart is the other major voice, and he is phoning it in. Like I've never heard Kevin Hart be so low energy in a performance before,
Hmm.
where he's saying the lines, but there's no. I don't know if he had a cold that day or he just didn't care about this project, but like that Kevin Hart energy, especially with Kevin Hart and The Rock, who were like a famous comedy duo. I got nothing from Kevin Hart from this movie whatsoever.
Interesting. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, like compilations of like Kevin Hart and The Rock together. Those guys are great.
Oh yeah, yeah, and because they've been doing like interviews, and they've been doing like TikTok challenges,
Yeah, and
all that kind of stuff.
they've done like 5 movies together now. So there's like
Yeah.
a history of them just ragging on each other. That's all they do evidently in interviews is just rag on each other. And it's charming.
What are they going to do a twins movie together?
I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, like you've got The Rock, who's huge, and Kevin Hart, who I mean, they're not quite Schwarzenegger or DeVito in stature, but they're the closest we have.
Yeah. I want them to make a movie where they're twins, but like nobody acknowledges that that's impossible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like twin action stars, and everybody treats Kevin like he's The Rock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that he's just as dangerous, even
And
though he's
just as big
literally
and
half
scary.
his size.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be awesome. Well, so is your review that you don't know what to think about this movie because you don't remember the ending?
Possibly.
Okay.
I do remember like the ending when they released the super the Justice League,
Mhm.
and that was probably the best part. I was awake by that because you had like Keanu Reeves was playing Batman, and I never realized I wanted a Keanu Reeves Batman until I saw this movie. I was like, oh,
Sure.
I think he'd actually make a really good Batman.
Do you think there's anything there for adults? Like, if I was to watch this on my own in my living room, does that seem like a decent use of my time, or is it pretty much like far and few between value for adults?
I think the animation's good.
Okay. So it might be
And-
worth it for that.
Yeah, but story wise, it's a lot of the whole like trust yourself, unlock your inner power, work as a team. Like there's not a lot original to the story.
Sure.
I do think the Justice League, that's a fun little part at the end there. But
Okay.
I think there's better movies to spend your time on than DC League of Super Pets.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. My number 9 is from 1984. It's another movie I gave 2 stars to, and it's titled Up the Creek. I would not blame you if you've never heard of this. I thought I had never heard of it, but talking about movies that I saw as a kid and then completely forgot about halfway through this movie, I remembered that I had seen it before.
Oh.
This is a mid 80s comedy, and it's basically like in the same world as like Revenge of the Nerds or Police Academy or those types of movies. It's like a little bit dirty, definitely 80s style comedy, jokes that are very problematic today, I would say, sprinkled throughout. Yeah, just right up my alley, circa, 10 years old or so, with my first rental card that I could rent things with without other people knowing. It stars Tim Matheson and Dan Moynihan, and it's kind of a who's who of like comedic dudes that were in movies like Porky's and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
From the time. Like if you watch it, it's kind of a, oh yeah, that guy from this other thing type of thing. And the story goes that these sororities and fraternities, for some reason, have to race down a river in a rafting competition. And whoever wins gets a cup. I don't remember exactly what they get, but
Okay.
they get something. And so they all kind of sabotage each other in like collegey frat kind of ways, frat and sorority kind of ways. And then hilarity ensues. I don't know. I didn't find it very funny.
Mhm.
Maybe you have to be 10 years old when you're watching this to really find it funny, I imagine. But I'm not 10. I'm much older than 10. And maybe things I only held on to from that time still hold value, right? Because I can watch Naked Gun today
Yeah.
and still think it's funny, but it's very much in the same vein as this type of stuff. So, but for some reason, this fell through the sands of time and the Naked Gun didn't. Which maybe Naked Gun is better. Maybe that's the difference. That this is just not good, period, no matter what time it would have come out.
Through
I
the
don't-
sands of your time or through the sands of movie time in general?
I mean, I feel like nobody talks about this movie.
Yeah.
So, whereas Police Academy, Naked Gun, those are movies that occasionally at least get brought up in
I
the
think-
canon of good things.
Yeah, I think Naked Gun is for sure considered a classic.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe not Police Academy, but Naked Gun for
I
sure.
think, yeah, Police Academy is considered maybe an 80s classic.
Sure. Well, Naked Gun was 80s, wasn't it? First
Yeah,
Naked
but
Gun?
I think Naked Gun has maybe transcended its decade,
Oh, okay.
whereas
You
Police
think, like-
Academy has not.
Do you think most people think of Back to the Future as a movie or an 80s movie?
Ooh. I would say most people think of it as a I'm gonna say most people now think of it as an 80s movie.
What about Jurassic Park?
I think
Movie or 90s movie?
I think that's seen as a movie, whereas maybe Titanic is seen as a 90s movie.
Oh, you think Titanic is considered dated or pegged to a date?
Yeah, I think people associate Titanic. I don't know. I would say because of the age of the actors, right? You have a young Leo and a young Kate Winslet. It's
Mhm.
James Cameron who is not known. I mean, he's known for Avatar now, but
Mhm.
you're right. He's definitely was more prolific in the 80s and 90s.
Sure.
Yeah. I would say that Titanic is more considered a 90s movie than Jurassic Park.
I wonder, I mean, that begs an interesting question. Like, what movies have transcended any, date or like if you asked somebody what is Wizard of Oz? I mean, it was a book, right? But
Yeah.
let's say beyond book, would they say movies or would they say a movie from the 30s
Or an old movie. Yeah.
or an old movie? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Or would they just say, "Oh, it's a movie"? I feel like you're right that Jurassic Park. I don't think people would be like, "Oh, it's 90s movie." I don't
Yeah.
think they'd say that. I think they'd just say movie.
That's a movie.
What would
yeah.
they say about Jaws? Movie?
See, Jaws could be a 70s movie. I don't know if Jaws has quite.
There are definitely bell bottoms in Jaws.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of because Jurassic Park is taking place not really within any sort of city or society. You just have
Mhm.
people dressed up like, I mean, maybe Jeff Goldblum is the most 90s looking character of all of them, but the rest of them, I mean, like what Dr. Grant's wearing, what Dr. Sadler's wearing, that's all just more or less clothes. I wouldn't say there's anything unique about that.
Yeah, the only thing that seriously dates Jurassic Park to me are the computer screens.
Oh, well, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, like,
They're so bad.
yeah.
They're so early 90s. And they looked awesome in the early 90s, but nowadays they are really
What-
bad.
When Lex is like going through the mainframe, it looks like a city. It's all like organized into literal city blocks. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, that's not how computers work. But I understand
Yeah.
for like an early 90s movie, you're trying to explain servers to people. You need to get some sort of visual representation.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. Anyway,
Yeah, anyway.
Up the Creek ends with like a flash flood of water that pumps through an expensive cabin on the edge of a cliff, and it is so clearly obviously a model that they like made and then dumped water down a scale model and then like just had the water push the crappy model wood down the hill. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's maybe that scene and just how completely dumb it looks is maybe the only thing that is worthwhile in this entire endeavor. I did not like it. My number 9.
Number 9. All right. My number 9 is another 2022 movie. This is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And as I sit here collecting my thoughts on this movie, this maybe should be my number 10. If I was to go back in time 20 minutes, I would make this my number 10.
What happened in the last 20 minutes that you changed your opinion a full 2 slots?
No, 1 slot. I'm going to take it from 9 to 10. Let's take it down.
Oh,
one.
right.
Yeah. So sometimes for these top 10 last 10s, I really like prepare and write down things I want to talk about. And other times I kind of make a list and I do more off the cuff. And tonight's a more off the cuff evening for me. And as you know, I'm kind of thinking about this movie. I was like, what do I like and what do I not like? And my list of dislikes is much greater than my list of likes for this movie.
I can't imagine what you could dislike about this movie. I love this movie.
So here's what I liked about it.
It might be my favorite Marvel movie.
It's really, I don't know if I've...
No, not really. Are you crazy?
Okay. You know,
I like it, but not that much.
I haven't listened. I'm a bad host here. I haven't listened to your Doctor Strange episode yet.
Oh, well,
I wasn't there.
You always
for it,
listen
so.
after we record it, or after you watch the movie. I know,
but I watched this movie a while ago and haven't.
All right, fair enough.
Haven't got around to it, so I should listen to it. Okay, so yeah, here's what I liked about it. I liked that Sam Raimi got to bring his aesthetic to this movie. Like, this is definitely a unique looking movie. It's even more unique than like what Taika Waititi is doing with Thor.
Sure.
Like, this is definitely, of all the Marvel movies, I would say this one probably has the largest director stamp on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of all the MCU, I should say.
If by unique you mean he made a Spider-Man movie with all the other Marvel characters, then yes.
Well, yeah, no, I'm right. Like I'm leaving out Sam Raimi Spider-Man, but correct.
He basically brought the tone he brings to comic book movies.
Yes.
To this
MCU, yeah.
Right.
And I didn't care for everything that he did, like zombie Doctor Strange towards the end.
Oh, so good.
That was not my favorite, but
so good.
I love
practical makeup too.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
no, I appreciated that. That. But like, I love the moment when the Doctor Stranges were doing their like battle with the musical notes, and it was set to like Beethoven. I thought that was, I've never seen anything like that before in a Marvel movie. All right, here's what I didn't like, and here's maybe why this should have been my number 10. I really don't like what this movie did with Wanda, especially after WandaVision. Because WandaVision, and I mean, I'm going to spoil WandaVision. Sorry, everyone. WandaVision, like, she goes on this pretty big journey of grief, of dealing with Ultron, of wanting to have a family, right? And it's a tight little 8-10 episodes. Like she really goes on this emotional journey, and when it comes to end, you feel like, oh, okay, she has found a place of peace. And then this movie just rips her right out of that. And I mean, she's the bad guy in this movie. Right. And like everything, a lot of what
spoilers for Doctor Strange.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's on the poster. So
is it? I didn't know going in.
Oh, okay. So everything, or a lot of what she did in WandaVision was somewhat negated by this movie.
I don't know.
I think a lot of the emotional journey she went on in that was...
I think a lot of the emotional journey is affected by what this movie starts with, right? With the book of the whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That explains the motivation through most of the movie.
Okay.
And then at the end of the movie, she's in an even better place than she was at the end of WandaVision. Like, she's come around fully. Like, she's been tested.
So you see this as a continuation of her WandaVision journey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair assessment. I don't remember the movie well enough or have a strong enough opinion to argue against you on that one. So
Sure.
I will accept your assessment of it. I did like when she was like covered in not blood, but blood towards the end. That was pretty crazy.
There's a
Like,
little bit of a Carrie homage. thing
exactly.
going,
That was stuff
for
you hadn't
sure.
seen before. So yeah, like the Sam Raimi touches I really liked. I thought those were good. My other biggest complaint was this movie's called The Multiverse of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about this before. We get the most boring multiverse you can get, which is New York with flowers. And it gives you all these, like, there's that moment when they travel and they travel through like 20 different universes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's paint ones, and there's pixel, and there's cyberpunk, and there's whatever. Like, it's all these cool looking ones. And I understand, like, you can't make an entire 90-minute movie in Paint World, or you can't make a 2-hour movie in Paint Universe. Like, that would just be visually tiring and incredibly expensive. But we've seen in recent years, like with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Everything Everywhere All at Once, how you can do multiverses and give a lot of different ones and make it both visually interesting and work for the story. And this one really seemed to, like, we're going to pick the most boring universe and stick within that. And it didn't really explore the multiverse aspect that I was hoping it would.
Yeah. That's a fair criticism. And also an unfair criticism at the same time. And this is why.
Okay.
Since you didn't watch the episode where we discussed it, you have to remember that the sequence, if you even knew this to begin with, of release for Marvel films was screwed by the pandemic.
Yeah.
So this movie was supposed to come out before Spider-Man Into the Spider, or whatever, the last Spider-Man movie, the multiverse Spider-Man movie.
Well, yeah, so I'm not talking about No Way Home. I'm talking about like Spider-Verse 2018. That shows.
Oh, you're talking
even
about the animated one.
the animated
Sony.
one. Yes, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's
Though I will say No Way
pretend-
Home is a better multiverse movie than this one also.
Absolutely. This was supposed to introduce the concept of a multiverse.
Okay.
And then that movie was supposed to be kind of the payoff for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this one, if you actually think about the resolution of it, like where the thing goes, it's about the multiverse, but not really. Not like Spider-Man No Way Home is. Anyway, let's say in a different world, you had seen this before you saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. Do you think you'd feel differently about the universes they explored? Because I definitely feel like the story element of like running quickly through universes and stuff like that and getting to experience like 3 to 5 seconds of all these really cool universes. With Everything Everywhere All at Once, they do that exact same thing, but they stop in a couple universes for longer than this movie does.
Yes.
But the universes are very low budget universes. They're like the hot dog finger universe and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Raccoon
They're not
or
like
something.
full cyberpunk,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
New York City. And that's because Everything Everywhere All at Once has like a fraction of the budget, right? Among other reasons. But that's one of them. So I think if we had gotten the storytelling device of like quickly passing through universes in Doctor Strange 6 months when it was supposed to be released, before we saw it and Everything Everywhere All at Once, I'm not saying the comparison wouldn't have been made. I just don't think it would be as harsh because Everything Everywhere and All at Once paid off the multiverse and that effect better than Doctor Strange does.
For sure. I would say there is some bias because of Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't think it would give this any more than a half-star bump.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
I mean, I
other
would
things about it, but
I would say Everything Everywhere All at Once does something that this movie doesn't, nor has any other multiverse movie, which is so far, which is like have alternate universes where alternate things are happening, but that it's affecting it in the timeline that you're supposed to care about, but also not really affecting that timeline in those other timelines. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the timelines even in in No Way Home or Doctor Strange, it kind of feels like they're there just to be cool, but not really to influence on like a real level. I guess with No Way Home, they influence on a real level, but I don't know.
I mean, in No Way
Just
Home,
felt
they bring all the
inconsequential.
timelines to one single timeline,
Right.
where Everything Everywhere All at Once has, you're right, multiple timelines all affecting the whole.
Yeah.
Separately, independently of each other, but together. It's a hard movie to describe if you haven't seen it. I
Like
think
the hot dog finger world is like over there and it's going to do its thing. And
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter what's happening in the main timeline. But yet what's happening in the hot dog finger world is actually affecting the story timeline,
correct, yes.
the film timeline. Yeah. So hopefully Marvel can get there. Although I don't think they're done with multiverse stuff, but I think they're done making movies based solely around multiverse, but
Mhm.
we'll see.
This whole phase 4 just seems like a overall misfire. Maybe the pandemic has part of it, but I really feel like what we've been getting from Marvel has been so unfocused compared to what we had going into, especially phase 2, phase 3.
Yeah, I think part of it is a volume issue. There's just so much Marvel stuff
Or the
that,
TV shows now, and
yeah, like if you go back and you look at the first 20 movies, I'd say 10 of them are consequential. The other
Yeah.
ones have little pieces that build into those 10s, but the majority of those other 10, pretty inconsequential. Then you get beyond that, and it feels like 1 out of 3 films instead of 1 out of 2
Mhm.
are consequential, just because they're doing there's TV episodes and movies about, you know, Black Widow, even though she's long dead. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
Black Widow
like,
prequel.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
just movies that don't feel like they're a part of the bigger story. And so I think it's always been a problem with the MCU. They just hit it better before. And now there's just so much content that it can't all be consequential.
Mhm.
So anyway,
All right, we got to keep going here. We're going to be here.
I know. Let's move it faster. Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. My number 8 is Beast from 2022. This movie was in theaters. I don't know if it still is, but definitely was. Stars Idris Elba and Charlton Copley, amongst others. And it's the movie where Idris Elba is with his kids in South Africa on vacation, visiting his friend, played by the bug guy from District 9. And this killer lion just starts attacking and eating people, and then he has to defend his family. And it's fine. It's perfectly good waste of time at a movie theater. Sure, it'll play the same way at home. If you like animal attack movies, man versus nature, there's a lot of that going on. There's also like this poacher through line where like the poachers have really pissed the lion off, and so that's why he'll eat even innocent people type of thing. The one interesting thing about this movie that maybe gives you a bigger motivation to watch it is that there's a lot of really long one takes in the movie.
Really?
That are all stitched, so you might hate them, Kyle, because they're not true oneers. Sure, you'll see every seam, but I thought it was interesting that they presented it that way. The other thing that's interesting is not only are they oneers, but they kind of occasionally follow a character from like 2/3 behind, like Resident Evil video game style. And then the camera will just kind of move into first person perspective.
Oh, wow.
And then it'll move back to third person as if you're playing a video game. It's like one of the only movies I've seen where I was like, that makes me feel like I'm playing a video game, not watching a movie, for better or for worse. There were times where I was like, this is distracting that you're doing this. But I thought that was an interesting presentation, even if it didn't really add much from like the thrill department. So overall, I gave it a 2.5. My number 8.
Number 8. All right. That movie was hyped, or not hyped. Every time I went to the theater, minus kids' movies, there was a trailer for Beast. So they were trying to market to everyone they could.
I will say the other thing Beast has going for it, 93 minutes end to end.
Nice. That's That is it's a temptation right there. If you
Yep.
keep it under
If it's
100.
not on the page, it's not on the stage.
All right, my number 8 is from 1971. This is THX 1138, directed by George Lucas. This is his first movie out of film school. I believe Francis Ford Coppola maybe produced this. If I'm looking back, it's hard to tell. Yeah,
I don't know if
Francis
he
Ford
produced it, but
Yep.
okay, he did.
Francis Ford Coppola produced it. Walter Munch helped write it, who did sound on like Apocalypse Now and was going to do sound on Star Wars, but was busy with other things. So yeah, so this movie was kind of one of the first movies done by one of the first movies done by George Lucas and done by that new crop of new Hollywood guys. You know, I think Zoetrope was Lucas's production company at the time. He was in the middle of working on Godfather while Lucas was doing THX 1138. And this movie is interesting to see where Lucas is going to go as a film director. Plot wise, there's not a lot original going on. Robert Duvall plays the title character THX 1138. It's this dystopian future that's like half Brave New World, where has to like take compulsory medication and things like intimacy are outlawed, and it's half Big Brother, where there's this overbearing government that's controlling everything you do and watching people at all times. And Duvall and his partner are trying to escape this dystopian hell. Everything's underground, so it's all shot interior. They're trying to like get out to the outside world. Definitely the movie doesn't have as much action as I'm describing it. There are many segments of talking or just sort of watching workers doing their jobs. The whole middle section takes place in a prison that's just one of those white infinity rooms. Like, he just felt like that he ran out of money for that moment, so he's like, it's just a infinity prison. We'll just have this happening here.
Just a weird Stanley Kubrick thing.
Exactly. Well, so that's the interesting thing, though, is you do see kind of how Lucas is bridging 2001: A Space Odyssey to Star Wars. Because I mean, this movie came out 3 years after 2001, so he's definitely, there's no space element to it, but like interior wise, clothing wise,
there's a lot of influence.
There's influence there, but he's also like going for this action. There's like a car chase finale to it, right? Where like Kubrick's not going to do a car chase finale. So like, it's an interesting bridge movie between what was the biggest movie of the 60s to what became the biggest movie of the 70s, and how do we get from one to the other? THX 1138 is one of the ways we got there. Here now is my plot twist to this review. As I was watching this movie, I was like, there were some things on screen like, wow, how did Lucas do this? Like, there are just some Blade Runner size cities at some points, and like there's these creatures crawling on people, which like look like rudimentary CG, but this is 1971. It couldn't have been. Like, how did he pull this off? I find out that the only version of THX 1138 you can get anymore is his 2004 remaster, where he Star Wars prequel or OG trilogy it, and he added in a bunch of things and said, well, I really wanted this to happen, I really wanted that to happen.
He's special edition.
Thank you, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, so that I wish I had known that going in, because that kind of clouded my opinion on the movie, because now I don't know what I saw was 1970 original and what I saw was 2004 special editions.
Right. You wanted to watch a historical document, and instead you got whatever the 2004 version would be considered. Exactly.
So I would recommend, if you're going to watch this movie, go to like whatever that website is, like that compares, the DVD versions, and just like look, even though you're going to kind of spoil the whole thing, just look at that to know there's no computer screen here. There's no rows of workers here. There's no gorilla thing crawling on him here. Like, this was all added later. And then you can have a better sense of what you're watching versus me sitting there like, wow, how did some guy pull this off in the 70s? Well, he didn't. He pulled it off 35 years later.
I don't think I've ever seen the new version. I only saw the original version like many, many years ago.
Oh, wow.
I
Lucky
thought it
you.
was boring.
It definitely is slow at times.
Sure.
I agree. My biggest revelation from this is there's a scene where they're watching TV and a guy is being beaten by cops on the screen, and I realized that Nine Inch Nails sampled it for the beginning of Mr. Self-Destruct. I was like, oh, I've
Sure.
heard this before. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. So that was first time watch for you.
First time watch for me. Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
My
I'm now a Lucas completionist.
Are you really? You've seen everything.
I mean, besides Star Wars, this, and American Graffiti, what am I missing?
Have you seen Red Tails?
Oh, no, is that Lucas?
Produced.
Oh, okay. Well, no. I mean, no, I'm talking directing.
I mean, you could probably watch all the things he produced. wouldn't be that many more.
I've probably seen most of them anyway. So
That's what I'm saying. Like
yeah.
you've seen all the Indiana Jones movies. He's
Correct.
on those.
Yep.
There's not too many more beyond that other than Red Tails and
Yeah.
a couple other things. So all right, my number 7.
Yeah, 7.
Yes, 7 is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from 2022.
All right, yeah.
Recent movie, another A24 joint. This one directed by Helena Rain and starring a bunch of people. Most importantly, Maria Bakalova from Borat 2, Pete Davidson from SNL, and Rachel Sennett from Shiva Baby, which was one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite performances from last year. There's certainly other people in this movie. I just wasn't familiar with them. But those three, I was like, oh, that I really didn't care about the movie at all. I just wanted to see what would happen with those three people. I've never even seen another movie with Maria Bakalova in it, period.
Yeah, besides Borat.
So, yeah, besides Borat. And she was really good in that. So the question is Maria Bakalova good as a foil to Borat, or is she good in general? And I would say that this was not the best container to show off what Maria Bakalova can do, because her character in this movie is kind of the fish out of water, like the sheepish, nerdy girl who like doesn't know any of the other kids at this party. And so she just kind of hangs out in the background for a great majority of the movie. And even when things really start to get going and she gets more involved, it's still just like a very quiet performance amongst a bunch of people that are not giving quiet performances. And so she didn't have much to do in this movie. And that didn't necessarily upset me, but I was just kind of like, okay, that one's out. And then Pete Davidson, also person I find interesting. I'm not sure I would say I ever saw him be really good in anything, although King of Staten Island is like decent. Like I at least forgot that he was Pete Davidson a little bit when I watched that. In this one, I definitely didn't forget. And he, spoiler alert, is out of the movie fairly early compared to the rest of the cast. And so it's not much to chew on there. And Rachel Sennett is just kind of another of the girls in the movie, another of the actresses who make a good majority of the movie. She was by far the best part. She's kind of the comedic element to the film, more so than any of the other characters. And that worked for me. But that was about it. The basic premise, what actually happens over the course of the movie, the kind of meta Xennial commentary horror thing was identifiable to me. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think it's a movie that's not necessarily made for me. Maybe that's why I had the reaction I had. But it felt like a bunch of memes about young people slapped into a movie that was actually made by a 46-year-old female. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like they got a director who was older to make this. Maybe they needed to get like a 20-something director to make this and really make it a movie I don't like. I'd be totally cool with that. I'm still waiting for like a horror movie where I go see it. I don't understand what anybody likes in it, but young people flip out over it. Like that should be happening. Those types of movies were happening for me when I was a young person. Why is that not happening now?
You don't think young people aren't flipping out over this one?
I don't know. Are they? Maybe I'm out of the loop. Maybe they are, and I'm just the old guy who doesn't like it.
Yeah.
I would be happy if that's the case. But I don't feel it. Maybe I'm just not around enough young people anymore.
It'd
I don't
be
know.
more around more of the youths.
You think people are freaking out over bodies?
No, I don't think. Unfortunately, I don't think people are freaking out over bodies. I don't know if this is the hit A24 was hoping it would be. Like I think every year A24, their model is we're gonna make 4 or 5 movies. It's kind of the Blumhouse model. Like we're gonna make a bunch for cheap, and if 1 or 2 go huge, then we've made our year.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of tell like when they have picked the one they think will go big. And I think this is the one they picked, and I don't know if it. I think it made money, but I don't know if it's doing like Midsommar money or something like Hereditary money, things like that.
Yeah.
Or
I don't know if it
money.
made money. The box office is $11.7 million.
Really?
So I can imagine that they maybe made this for half that, or they maybe made it for exactly 11.7.
Yeah.
But they had to market it too. So
Only
I don't know.
11.7?
I mean, I'm sure they'll make it back on like streaming rights and stuff
Yeah,
like
but
that.
still,
because
like,
it's the kind of
okay,
movie that streamers are gonna like, but
yeah, probably not the hit they're hoping it would be.
I would guess not.
Okay.
The other thing that disappointed me about this was Disaster Piece does the soundtrack, who's like a chiptune guy, brought to my attention by the movie It Follows. And I love that soundtrack. I still listen to it to this day, every now and then. I'd say like once a month on average over the last 6 years. I've listened to the Disaster Piece soundtrack to It Follows. And he's had 3 or 4 movies since then that he's done the score for. And I don't like any of them from a score perspective. And that's sad. Like he did Under the Silver Lake. He did this movie. He did that Ben Affleck movie about like the money in the walls. Triple Games or Triple. It's a Netflix movie. It's not good either.
Okay.
Anyway, Bodies. It was perfectly fine A24 watch, but not my favorite.
All
3
right.
stars.
Awesome. My number 7, another 2022 movie. This one's streaming on Apple TV. This is Cha Cha Real Smooth. This movie starring Cooper Ruff and Dakota Johnson are probably the 2 names you recognize, but Leslie Mann and Brad Garrett are also in it. Cooper Ruff plays a fresh out of college grad who doesn't really know what to do with his life, so he becomes a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, not even a DJ, like a hype man. Like there's a DJ, but he's kind of the one who's like running the party.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really good at it. And that kind of becomes, like he's his parents are within the Jewish community, so like every family's hiring him for their kids' bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs to sort of run the party. And he meets Dakota Johnson at one of these parties. And Dakota Johnson has a teenage daughter who's on the spectrum, who's played by a actress on the spectrum, which is nice. And he both befriends this the daughter, and then befriends and has an odd relationship with Dakota Johnson. Like she's engaged to someone. There's definitely an attraction there. They definitely enjoy spending time with each other, but they don't want to quite cross any lines in that aspect. And so this is definitely sort of a drama about this kid growing up trying to figure out who he is in his life. It's a charming movie, but it's maybe a little empty the more I think about it.
Okay.
Where like I remember at the time I was really into it. I was charmed by it. I was charmed by Cooper Ruff, just kind of his whole like disarming personality. He's never the aggressor in the relationship. He's always kind of like, hey, is everything okay? Is everything okay? He's just kind of like the cool guy. And then the more I think about him, I'm like, well, what was this movie really about? Like, is it just about this character like trying to save this woman? Is it just about him trying to figure out what his life is? Or is it just kind of like we're gonna hang out with these people for 90 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a movie I liked, but I don't know if there's a lot to it. beyond just like you can enjoy what you're seeing.
Do you think I would like this movie?
Have you seen another Cooper or Cooper Rafe? Is that his name?
Let me click his name here. Yeah, I've seen S House.
Yes, that's the other one. Okay. So, I mean, how do you feel about him or the actor?
The actor I don't remember, but the movie I gave 4 stars.
Okay. So I think
a unique addition to the college party scene experience genre was my full review.
Okay. I wouldn't call this movie unique.
Okay.
But if you like Dakota Johnson, she's good in it.
I do like Dakota Johnson.
I did write down my review. Some of her dialogue's a little maybe too on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
So it might kind of like slap you over the face with what it's about. But I don't think it's a bad movie.
Sure.
I mean,
I like Leslie Mann
7, so.
too, and Brad Garrett. They're good.
And I think they play his parents. So they kind of pop in and out of the movie.
All right. I'm going to watch list it.
Anyway, you can tell it's indie comedy because the poster is yellow.
And minimalist.
Exactly. So.
All right. My number 6 is An Evening with Beverly Luff Lynn from 2018. This is the first movie that I refuse to give a star rating to.
You refuse? Well, then how can you even rate it? How can you rank it?
That's why it's like right at the middle of my list.
Well, okay, so then
if I had like a 5.5 position on my list, I would have put it there, but I had to choose either 5 or 6.
What's the star rating of the previous movie?
7. So this one's 6.
No, star rating of the previous movie.
Oh,
Bodies.
3?
What do you give that?
3.
And then what's the spoiler? What's the star rating of the movie that's coming up after this one?
I don't remember.
Well, you could.
I'd have to click it. 3.
So here we go. 3 stars.
It's not 3.
Okay.
I don't know. It's possible that this is like a 1-star movie. It's also possible this is a 5-star movie.
So we're undecided.
That's my problem.
That's why we slid in the middle. We're undecided.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never once added a movie to Letterboxd, unless it's like a posthumous rating and like not giving it a rating. Even those I gave ratings to. I can't think of another movie where I was like, I just watched it and I could not come to a conclusion about it. It's such a specifically weird movie that's presented in such a specific way with all the actors giving such a specifically weird performance that I kind of felt like I didn't get it, but I wanted to. If that makes sense.
What's the name of this movie again? I want to pull it up while you talk about it.
An Evening with Beverly Luff Lynn.
Okay. It's
directed by Jim Hosking. Supposedly he makes these movies. Like there's a couple of them that have this exact same tone. They're all kind of comedy movies. The cast is awesome. You're looking at Aubrey Plaza, Emile Hirsch, Craig Robinson, Jermaine Clement from whatever that music group is, Flight of the Conchords.
Yep. Yeah.
It feels like a very British movie, although the vast majority of the actors are American. And it's just very awkward and weird. I mean, like nobody is acting like a normal person in this movie. Even the normal people are not acting normal. And it's never played. It doesn't feel like the tone and the performances in combination are the joke. But they're also not telling jokes. You know what I mean? So it'd be like if Napoleon Dynamite, which is a movie I know you don't like, but I did, only had the tone and none of the jokes, none of the catchphrases, none of the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the awkwardness is the joke, but not treated like a joke. Like in Napoleon Dynamite, the characters you're spending time with are weirdos, but the rest of the non-weird world exists. In this movie, everybody acts like a weirdo.
Everyone's weird. Okay. Yeah.
And nobody thinks anybody's acting weird in this. And it was it was a trip to watch, and it absolutely confused me, and that's why I refuse to give it a rating because I can't decide whether I like it or hate it.
Well, I think looking at the star rating breakdown on Letterboxd, you're not alone in your opinion.
Oh, I haven't even
Because
looked at that.
there's not a nice little, like, oftentimes in Letterboxd you see a nice little curve of, like, people sort of coalesce around one rating, and there's obviously outliers. And then
Mhm.
this one, there's definitely a highest rating, but it's sort of like peaks and valleys all across that 5-star spectrum.
Mhm.
So I get the impression that a lot of people saw this movie and either they love it or they're unsure or they just hate it. But there's not this coalescing around like, oh, this is a good movie or this is a bad movie. It's a undecided movie.
Yeah, in my activities from friends, I have 1 star, 3 2.5 stars, and 3 4 to 5 stars.
Yep. Yeah, I see something similar too in that breakdown.
So there's not too much in the dead center,
No.
I would say.
People have opinions.
Yeah. I think if you're into those actors, it might be a decent little experiment for sure.
Yeah.
But just be ready to be baffled by it, like I was. My number 6.
I do like that cast. So
Yeah.
my number 6 is a movie from 2010. This is Meek's Cutoff, directed by Kelly Reichardt.
Oh.
This is my second Kelly Reichardt movie after seeing First Cow, which we watched for the podcast a couple years ago or a year ago. And I loved First Cow. It was one of my favorite movies of last year. I liked the filmmaking style, so obviously I had to seek out more from Kelly Reichardt, and I think Meek's Cutoff is maybe her second most popular movie or most well known.
Oh, you think it's less popular than First Cow?
On Letterboxd, it is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Maybe that's the A24 effect.
That's probably the case. Yeah.
Meek's Cutoff didn't get that honor back then.
No. No. So this is a movie about a group of settlers in the, I don't know, 1850s or around that time that the wagon trains are heading out west to be settled, and they're kind of lost. They're heading towards I think they're trying to head towards maybe Oregon, so they're kind of doing the Oregon Trail thing, and they're led by this guy named Meek, and he takes them on a shortcut. And there's starting to be dissent within the wagon train of, does this guy really know where he's going? Is he taking us the right way or not? Is he lost? Is he drunk? Is he in cahoots with the indigenous people to get us lost? But what's interesting about this movie is you experience this plot mostly from the perspective of the women of the wagon train, the wives. And there's 3 of them. And they're played by Michelle Williams and Zoe Kazan and Shirley Henderson. So most of the, I don't even call action this movie because it's not very action heavy, but most of the discussions of this movie are happening amongst the men, amongst the husbands, and the cameras with the women off in the distance, and they're kind of overhearing what's going on, or you see them talking to their husbands about what's going on, but you never quite get a full picture of where the drama is. So it's kind of give you the sense of like, what's it like to be a pioneer woman, where you really don't have a lot of say in what's happening. You're not, you don't have a lot of agency in the group decisions. It's also a movie where you're kind of dropped in and then dropped out. So the movie kind of starts and you're sort of figuring out what's going on. And then there is plot, things do happen. It does go somewhere, but then they kind of pull you out of it too. There's no clear, like, this is the end of the movie. So it's definitely, I don't call it slice of life, but a lot is left open in the air on this movie.
I mean, I definitely feel like it's maybe not slice of life because there's like a major life thing happening.
Yeah.
Over the course. It's not like, oh, this is what's that French movie that's like 8 hours long where the woman's just cleaning her apartment? It's not that much a slice of life movie.
Yeah.
but it's a fairly uneventful movie. I would say.
It's definitely slow.
It's
but
slow, yeah.
I do feel like as things get worse, the movie does pick up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It's slow but authentic feeling, kind of like First Cow is.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
First Cow though had more plot to it. Like they had a clear
Mhm.
beginning, middle, end.
Mhm.
And this movie kind of feels almost all like a little bit of first act, mostly second act, a little bit of third act. Like
Right.
they kind of chopped off the ends of this movie, which is I think the point.
This is your number 6?
It's my number 6.
It's too low.
This enters
Needs to
into
be
the
higher.
realm of movies that I definitely like. Like everything before
Alright.
this, I had mixed feelings on. Now I'm in the I like these movies.
It better be pretty amazing because Meek's Cutoff ranks really high for me. Meek's Cutoff is in my top 500.
Really,
What number do you think
Uh,
Meek's Cutoff lands at in my top 500?
482.
No.
Higher.
Like higher is in closer to 1 or closer to 500?
Closer to 1.
Okay. 382.
No.
282.
Very close.
Okay.
274.
Oh, hey. On my 4th guess, I was pretty close.
Didn't quite make my top 250. Which movie do you think I like more? Meek's Cutoff or Rocky?
I think you like Meek's Cutoff 1 space higher than Rocky.
No.
I like Rocky 4 spaces.
Oh, 4 spaces higher. Okay.
4 spaces more. Yeah. Very specific trivia we're doing here.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
good. That's good.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you I'm glad you saw it. Anybody that takes the time to see Meek's Cutoff is all right with me, Kyle. So you're all right with me.
I'm good in your book. Awesome.
Yep. All right. Number 5 is a movie from 2002 titled Ripley's Game. This movie was recommended to us, maybe me specifically, by a listener. So this is a listener recommendation. I don't remember who recommended it, nor could I find it. So I don't know where it was recommended. Maybe it was in the what do you call it? Discord, possibly. I think that's the only place I didn't search.
It could have been, yeah.
Somebody recommended this. It's a pseudo sequel to The Talented Mr. Ripley from the early 2000s with Matt Damon.
Oh, it's a
playing kinda
99
like
movie.
Is that 1999?
It is, yes.
The late 90s movie? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very young Matt Damon plays kind of like this, I don't know, psychopath con man who
Mhm.
weasels his way into a bunch of rich kids' lives. So this being a sequel, I know why I said early 2000s, because this one's from the early 2000s, 2002. So this movie, evidently the Talented Mr. Ripley is a part of a book series that's 5 books. That's the first book. This is the 3rd book. They decided not to do the 2nd book. And also Matt Damon didn't want to star in this. So instead of him, they got Matt Damon doppelganger, John Malkovich.
Oh, yeah, they look so similar both in age and look.
Absolutely. And in this movie, he convinces a guy that that he's going to die, and because of that, he should become a hitman and get paid a lot of money, Breaking Bad style, in order to support his wife and child beyond his death due to the illness. And spoiler alert, and they tell you this up front, it's a big con, the guy's not dying.
Yeah.
So Tom Ripley is the guy that convinces the other guy, and Tom Ripley's like an art thief in this movie. I don't remember if that element's in the first one, but it's definitely in this one. And I actually like this movie. I thought it was interesting. The fact that it's like a continuation of a story, but like completely different actors, but yet you could kind of feel like a similarity in performance between Malkovich and Damon. And I liked that the ending in this one, which I'm not going to spoil here, gives the Tom Ripley character like just the slightest hint of humanity in it, but yet keeps him a like feelingless psychopath at the same time. Like that's his problem, is he has zero empathy for other people. Like he's legit like a serial killer who only kills because it benefits him instead of just because, I guess that's what serial killers do. It benefits them in other ways other than money. But in his case, he only does it for the money. Um, and at the end of the movie, something happens to him, and it cracks the shell a little bit, and I liked that. But it does take a long time to get there. Uh, but I'm glad I watched it. It was interesting, and I'd recommend it to people who like thrillers, intrigue movies, double crossy type stuff. It's good in that way. My number 5.
All right. Yeah, I've been hearing about that movie, but John Malkovich to Matt Damon to John Malkovich is a bit of a leap.
They're very, they have their lanes.
Yeah.
Those lanes rarely cross. You cast those two people for very different reasons normally.
They were in Rounders together, correct? The gambling movie?
Maybe I haven't seen Rounders since the first time I saw Rounders.
This is when we need Zach here. Every time there's a Matt Damon question,
yeah,
he could confirm this.
Zach remembers every scene of Rounders.
Oh, for sure. All right, my number 5 is listed as a 2021 movie, but did not come out until 2022. This is The Black Phone, directed by Scott Derrickson. This movie is starring Mason Thames and Ethan Hawke. They're probably the two major names you recognize. Maybe you recognize Jeremy Davies is also in this movie. And this is a horror movie. Ethan Hawke plays a serial killer who kidnaps and murders children. It takes place in Denver in the late 70s. And he kidnaps Mason Thames and locks him in his basement and sort of, I would say, psychologically torments him. Because Mason Thames knows who this guy is. He knows he's in this basement. He knows what happens to kids in this basement. But he's trying to figure out what exactly is Ethan Hawke trying to do here. Or why is he torturing me? Psychologically, not physically. There's also a disconnected phone in this basement that starts to ring. And this kid is able to communicate with the ghosts of the previous murder victims of Ethan Hawke's character. And starts to talk to these kids to try and figure out, is there a way he can get out of this basement and out of this situation? And this is a movie that I liked, but it's kind of odd because it's not sure what tone it wants to take. I mean, I put it at number 5, so I like this movie, but tonally, it's a little weird. I would say the best way to describe this movie is if Steven Spielberg made like a soft R horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
This would be it. Because like you've got, it's all about kids who are kind of raising themselves. It takes place in late 70s. The adults aren't really good at figuring anything out. Like kids are figuring out for themselves. But in this case, it's dead kids figuring it out for each other with a child murderer upstairs the whole time. So this movie has these moments. It definitely goes for the jump scenes, the jump scares. And it goes for some of the gore, but it never quite goes for the full-on dread. And I think it's because the fact that we're dealing with a kid locked in a basement, it's a little scared to like go too scary because just the implications of this is about a child murderer, not just a regular murderer. Like with a regular murderer, you can do whatever you want because they're murdering adults. But once you bring children into it, like how intense do we want to go? So I feel like the movie does pull some of its punches where it could have been have more tension, more drama or more dramatic tension to it. And less of like cheap jump scares, which didn't really work for me. Ethan Hawke, however, is great in this movie. He is not in it a ton, but he will occasionally show up in the basement wearing these various sort of theater masks, kind of showing his emotions, some have horns on them. And he is unhinged, but in the best way. Like he is controlling his unhinged performance. And you really get a sense of like, oh, this guy is scary and is unpredictable. And then the kid actors are also good. I enjoyed that. I just wish it would maybe have landed on a tone. And I think maybe it felt a little scared Like It, even that involved kids, that went for a full like this is horror, this is scary. There's dread going on. I'm talking It from 2017.
Mhm.
And this movie seemed to just hold back a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, that one's been on my list. I couldn't really tell if it's like a cheesy, disposable horror film that just is going to come and go, or like I have been hearing things that it's more than that. Is that your feeling on it?
Yes, there is more going on, and I liked where it went. Like I was
Mhm.
pleased with it when it concluded, and like I said, I think the performances are good.
Mhm.
I think it's maybe the director is where it suffered, and just not being able to fully commit to what kind of movie are we making. Like, are we making Goonies or are we making It? You can't make both.
Sure. Fair enough. Although I would watch that movie. An It Goonies
An
crossover.
It Goonies crossover. But you would want like an It Goonies crossover. You wouldn't want a movie where it's like Goonies for 5 minutes, then It for 5 minutes, then Goonies for 5 minutes. You really want
For
like an
sure.
actual mixing of the two.
Right.
And
right.
and this one kind of feels like it's two
It's
movies.
flip flopping.
Yeah. Now it's number 5. I still like this movie. So
Mhm.
I mean, I'm even a little harsh on it, but it definitely is. I think it could have been a little bit better.
All right. Fair enough. My number 4 is The Drover's Wife, The Legend of Molly Johnson. This is a 2021 Australian Western. You know, I love my Australian Westerns. I
Yeah,
seek
like
them out.
Sweet Country.
Yeah, Sweet Country is awesome. That's a
Yeah.
good example of a recent Australian Western. Nightingale. Nightingale.
Oh yeah, the Nightingale. Yep.
Yep, that was a interesting Western for sure, Australian set, and this one as well. This one is it's a pretty brutal watch, but really good. It's about this woman who has a child, and her husband is a drover, which I think is like basically a cowboy who's like off on a job type of thing. She's left alone at the house with her children, and this couple shows up, and she takes them in and gives them food and water. They were kind of like lost in the forest type of thing. And then she sends her kids with them to town, and things happen from there, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to spoil. And it kind of comes down to like her having to protect herself in a harsh environment because her husband's not around, type of thing. And things escalate, and she is surprisingly good at protecting hers and her own, I would say. And it's really well done. And it has like a little bit of Australian Western politics type stuff in it. And the lead actress is like in her mid to late 40s, which is just a weird thing on screen. I mean, like I
Yeah.
can't tell you the last American movie I saw where that's your lead type of thing. And she's an Aboriginal actress I'm reading, and she was also in The Proposition, which is another
Oh,
West Australia set Western that I enjoy as well. And yeah, it was really good. It's a small film, but if you're into Westerns, particularly Australian set, this is definitely one of them, and one of the better. The Drover's Wife, The Legend of Molly Johnson. Supposedly based on a true story, too.
you have yet to steer me wrong on my on your Australian westerns.
Yeah, there is one like R-word scene that's a
Okay.
little difficult. So just be aware that you're getting into that.
How intense is this? Like Nightingale, I avoided because you said there's some pretty intense things. How does
It's
it
not
compare
as
to Nightingale?
intense as that,
Not as intense as that. Okay.
but it is in there.
Okay.
So if you're sensitive to that,
You have been warned.
be aware. Or if you live with people that are sensitive to that, maybe don't watch it in the living room. You know what I mean? If you know that's going to be a problem.
Tell Galen to go to bed. Don't come out.
Yep.
Yep. All right, my number 4, another 2022 movie. This is an animated movie on Netflix called The Sea Beast. And this movie is best described as like How I Met Your Dragon meets Pacific Rim. It takes place in a mythical seafaring village in like the Victorian-ish era, you can kind of say,
Mhm.
like the age of ships. And there is a group of sea monster hunters, beast hunters that protect this town um, from these big sea beasts that come ashore and eat ships and wreak havoc. Carl Urban and Jared Harris play the two main hunters of this crew. And Carl Urban, as well as this girl who's played by Zaria Angel Hader, um, encounter one of these beasts and then realize that these animals aren't maybe as dangerous as they are perceived to be. Kind of like How I Met Your Dragon in that sort of same sense. And then go on to try and convince the town that, hey, these creatures aren't actually monsters. We can live with them harmoniously if we need to. So, I mean, plot-wise, not the most original movie, right? Like, we've seen this with How I Met Your Dragon and other ones. What
Mhm.
made this movie for me, though, was the animation. It is beautiful animation of these creatures who are in water, who live on land. These elaborate, sailing boats with cannons and everything. Like the animation is incredibly detailed on it. The Each sea beast is unique, so they're not all kind of like giant Godzilla. Like one's Godzilla, one's like a kraken, one's like a giant crab. Like each one has its own unique look to it. The voice acting is really good. Carl Urban's great in it. My biggest complaint probably is the main sea beast, the toothless of this movie. Looks like a giant pink tongue. And I don't understand. Like all the ancillary ones are incredible looking. And then they got around to the main one, and it looks like that monster from Monsters Inc. that gets shaved from like having a sock on it is the best way I could describe it.
Sure.
So I don't know. I don't know why they dropped the ball or who thought this was the best idea for creature design, but animation wise, I was really impressed by this movie. My whole family liked it, and I think this is a movie where you could watch and get something out of it, unlike DC League of Super Pets.
And this is on Netflix.
This is
right?
on Netflix, so you can watch it anytime you want, assuming you
Alright.
have Netflix.
I do happen to have Netflix.
I mean, at this point, I think we have Netflix mostly for Galen.
Really? You don't really watch it anymore?
We hardly watch Netflix. Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of sports documentaries on Netflix. They are killing it in the sports documentary game right now.
Yep.
They had that Untold series where they had a series of sports documentaries, and then right after I got done with those, they released a brand new series called Bad Sport.
Okay.
That's like a whole nother set of documentaries about people who lost big. I mean, like lost. Some of them are to scandal, and some of them are like for other reasons.
Mhm.
Like the first one that I watched was about a guy who played for Arizona State basketball, and he was point shaving and gambling, and he was so good that they could tell him like, okay, the over under is 6, so you have to be 6 points or less, and he could hit it exactly on the number every single game.
Wait, was he a player?
He was a player.
Oh, okay.
He was so good that he could dictate exactly the score of the game
Wow.
by the point spread, which meant that they could never really detect it,
Mhm.
and they find out about it through other ways, and only through watching game tape later, after knowing what he did, could they pick out exactly the moments where
Yeah.
when he was shaving. And it basically like ruined his NBA career. Like he was guaranteed a number 1 pick before that happened.
Mhm.
And then once it happened, nobody untouchable.
No one wants a cheater. Nope.
Right, basically. Anyway, yeah, so I can't vouch for them in any other way other than sports documentaries. they're hitting that demo hard the last month or so.
Maybe they realize, hey, this is where we can keep subscribers for the next couple months.
Yeah, I don't know. I still need to watch Stranger Things season 4 as well.
Oh, the most recent one?
I'm behind on that. Did you watch that? Are you a Stranger Things person? I don't remember.
I did. Megan and I watched the first episode of season 4 together, and she dipped out because season 4 definitely goes into the horror aspect of things, and like a bit of the gory horror aspect of things. And I took a break for a while, then I decided I kind of wanted to finish it. And I'm glad I did, but it's definitely, I would say, of the 4 seasons, it's the scariest.
Sure.
In that sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, I always like the balance, so maybe I won't like it either, but we'll see. My turn, right?
It is your turn, yeah.
Yeah, my number 3 is from 2022. It's the last A24 movie on this list. Okay? I've been watching a lot of them lately for some reason. This one is called Funny Pages.
Okay.
I wouldn't blame you if you didn't hear about it. I don't even think A24 marketed it for some reason. I don't know. I enjoyed it though. Out of the 3 A24 movies on this list, it's the highest by far. It's my 3rd favorite movie out of the last 10 I saw. It's basically a quirky nerd comedy set probably in the 90s. I don't remember when it was set. Maybe it was the early 2000s. Let me see if I can figure this out. Nope, can't figure it out. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
But the movie fits vibe-wise very well with like nerd comedies, like indie comedies from the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. Movies like American Splendor. Remember that movie?
Oh, yeah.
American Splendor or Crumb. Remember that movie?
Yep.
There was also a documentary about the same guy, or Ghost World, like those types of movies with that specific vibe. It's basically a 2022 movie that feels like it was released with that group of movies. And it's about these kids who work at a comic book shop and they want to be comic book artists, and they meet a guy who inked an Image comic. And they freak out because they've never met anybody that ever did anything in the comic book industry. And he just happens to be a guy who inked an Image comic. Like he doesn't consider himself an artist or anything like that. He's not amused that these kids are enamored by him. And it's all very weird in that very specific way. And I was really digging the movie and the world that it was building and the characters that they were forming in front of me. I was really getting into it, and then the movie just kind of ends. There is an ending, but it's not like, I don't know if it needs a satisfying ending. I just needed a, like, I don't know, more definitive something at the end. It just felt like they ran out of film or printer paper to print the script on and just decided to roll credits instead. I don't know. Maybe the difference between the movies I mentioned before and this one is that those movies have endings to them, and this one just kind of stopped, and that was it. And it was kind of like, okay, so you made me like all these characters, and then you didn't do much with them. That's my one complaint. Besides that pretty gigantic complaint, still my 3rd favorite movie of the year.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Maybe not of the year. 3rd favorite movie of the last 10.
Okay.
And I think that says something about just how well direction they were heading. Like, I think it had a little more to chew on in the end. I mean, this could be at like a top 20 movie by the end of the year. Probably not in the condition it's currently in, but I was vibing with it pretty hard. My number 3.
Should I see it?
I mean, do you like American Splendor, Crumb, or Ghost World, those types of movies?
I remember the American Splendor was Paul Giamatti, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember liking that one. I never saw Ghost World or Crumb.
I think you'll like the vibes of this one.
Okay.
Also, 86 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So not a huge commitment. Just know that if you're liking it, it's going to end on you.
It's just going to stop.
It's just going to stop. It's produced by the Safdie brothers.
Okay.
So they were into it, evidently. And Andy Milonakis is in it and not annoying somehow. Do you know who Andy Milonakis
He
is?
had an MTV show, right?
He had an MTV show. He was also the kid who was actually much older than he looked on the Man Show.
That's right. Yes, he looks like he's perpetually 13.
Right.
Yes.
And he makes his living now streaming on Twitch.
Okay. Yep.
Anyway, he's in this too. I was like, oh my God. He still looks like a 14-year-old in
Well,
like
yeah,
a
right.
35-year-old's body. It's crazy.
I can remember his theme song from the MTV show.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
What's your
interesting.
number 3?
All right, my number 3 is a anime movie from 2006 called Paprika, which I believe you and I have discussed before, maybe as movies we will maybe someday watch.
I feel like somebody recommended it to us.
That could have been the case too. So let's just say this is a listener recommendation, and I watched it.
Okay.
Okay. This movie is directed by Satoshi Kon, who is famous for making Perfect Blue as well as Tokyo Godfathers. He only made, I believe, only 4 or 5 feature-length films, Paprika being his last one before he passed away. And this is a movie that takes place in Japan in the near future, where a company has invented a device that can you can enter people's dreams with this device. And someone has stolen the device and is using it for nefarious reasons to essentially collect everyone's dreams and consciousness into one uber consciousness that kind of like that can invades everyone's brains while they're asleep. And the only person who can stop this from happening is this character named Paprika, who seems to only exist in the dream world. So she's working with the outside world to kind of, it's sort of a bit of a police procedure. I don't say procedural, but an investigation. A noir, maybe that's a better way of saying it. A noir of trying to figure out who has this device, how are they using it, why are they using it, and how can we save these people from having this shared consciousness. It's a movie that takes full advantage of being animated because it takes place within dreams. You get that dream sense where like things cascade into each other. You get sort of that disjointedness of when you actually are dreaming of like how do I get from point A to point B. This movie is able to capture that. Some people in the reviews say that Inception ripped off this movie, and I think that's kind of unfair just because they're both about dreams. You can't just say, well, this movie's about dreams, so then this other movie's about dreams must also have ripped it off. But there's definitely some moments in this movie that reminded me of Inception. So I would not be surprised if Nolan was inspired by this movie. But it's not a plot ripoff by a stretch of the imagination. And it's got some pretty great music in it too. As all the dreams are kind of collecting into one, it becomes this enormous parade of randomness. And there's this sort of evil circus music that accompanies this parade as it marches from consciousness to consciousness, which was always effective whenever I saw that on screen. I did watch the dubbed version of this because I do struggle more now with what can be sometimes squeaky voices within Japanese animated films. So I just went with the English dubbed version. And I think that helps me enjoy these movies more for what they are visually, if I can remove some of the auditory moments.
Very American of you.
I know. I used to be of this mindset of I'm only going to watch with subtitles and the original dialogue. And then I just found that I got to some movies and I wasn't enjoying them because of the spoken voices. Yes, that's a cultural thing, and maybe I should be better. But if listening to the dub version makes me appreciate the movie overall on a whole in a better light, then I think that's the best way to watch it.
I'm gonna have to take away your weeb card.
My weeb card?
You've never heard the term
Never heard
weeb?
of that. No.
Weeb. I mean, how do you define weeb? Here we go. Weeb. What does weeb mean? A weeb is a derisive term for a non-Japanese person who is obsessed with Japanese culture that they wish they were actually Japanese.
Yeah, I don't think that describes me whatsoever.
I know. But if you were a weeb, you definitely would not be watching the dubbed version.
Oh, for sure.
That's
No.
the joke. Is
Yes.
like,
Oh, okay.
obviously you're not a weeb. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching a dubbed version of something Japanese. That's for sure.
Seeing this movie does make me want to. I give this 4 stars. I liked it. It makes me want to go back and watch Perfect Blue again
Mm-hmm.
because I remember hating Perfect Blue. But like watching.
You think it was to the voices?
No, because I'm pretty sure I watched the dub version too. But I remember watching it with my brother because he was definitely into anime in like high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I just for whatever reason, Perfect Blue rubbed me the wrong way, or just something about it. I hated it. And I think I just need to give it a second chance. Maybe maybe I was just being biased against Japanese animation films in general back then.
Mm-hmm. I definitely have a bias, I think, against watching anime because of the squeaky voices as well. Maybe this is my challenge. Much like you are to heart things freely for the next week,
Okay.
I need to watch an anime that I'm resisting watching, and I need to watch it with the English dub version and just get over the fact that I'm never going to like animes with squeaky voices. So if I'm going to experience them, I should just get over the fact that I'm going to watch the dub version.
Have you seen
And
Princess?
it'll be fine.
Have you seen Princess Mononoke?
No.
All right. You got Liam Neeson. You got Gillian Anderson, Claire Danes. They're all voices you recognize.
Yeah, all of that just gives me such cringy feelings to think that I'm going to listen to that instead of the original actors. I mean, that sounds like such a cash grab. Like Cynic James just goes, "Don't watch that garbage. They hired all these big name actors to voice it just to sucker you into watching. Just watch the original. That's how the artist meant for it to be, taken in." Like, that's what's running through my mind when you say all that.
Would it make you feel better or worse knowing that Harvey Weinstein was the person behind getting all those voices on that movie?
Oh yeah, that makes me feel great about
That's
it.
okay. There's a selling point right there.
That monster might make $1 off me watching it.
Would it make you feel better or worse that Harvey Weinstein wanted to chop the movie up? And I don't think it was Miyazaki. It must have been someone else. Someone on the production crew came in to the meeting with a samurai sword and laid it down and said, "No cuts."
That sounds like urban legend.
No, that's not. There are
That
multiple.
happened?
Yes, there are
No way.
multiple reports of that happening.
Nobody talked to Harvey Weinstein like that.
I believe
There's not a
Miyazaki
chance.
or someone at Studio Ghibli talked to Harvey Weinstein that way.
I need some proof.
Okay, if I find an article that's not just like a tweet or a repeat of something else, if it's not like an IMDb trivia thing, I will share it with you.
Okay.
Okay.
So is my challenge, or is the challenge you're giving to me to watch Princess Mononoke with the A-list dub version?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it, and I'll see if I can let go of that hang up. Because it's holding me back at this point. I'm literally not watching anime because I'm like, I hate the squeaky voices. It's been 20 years of watching anime on and off. Haven't been able to get into it. I think it's the squeaky voices.
I think if that's the barrier, and if you can remove that barrier and you can appreciate the animation of it and the storytelling, then remove the barrier. Go for it.
Sure. We speculated that this was recommended to us by a listener. It was. In 2019, January 2019, before you were actually regularly on the podcast, Kyle. Regularly, you know what I mean? As a co-host. Scott McHarg recommended this to us, and you 3 years later watched it for him without knowing it.
we have a promise. You recommend a movie,
we will
watch it. It may take 3 years and a new host.
And you might accidentally do it.
And it might be not on purpose, but it's crazy how the world works sometimes.
It got watched one way or the other. Speaking of listener recommendations, my number 2 was another listener recommendation. This one, definitely more recent. This was recommended to me by listener Justin Eddy. It's from 2022, and the movie is Resurrection. This movie stars Rebecca Hall. It's a psychological thriller. It's great. It also has Tim Roth in it.
I like Tim
It's
Roth.
psychological thriller. I'd also add the word paranoid in there. Paranoid psychological thriller. So
I'm glad you like.
um,
I remember hearing about this movie. I'm glad you liked it.
I think you would like
Okay,
it.
I'm gonna add
I
it to the
think
list
you
right
and
now.
Zach would like it for sure. It's
Okay.
a horror movie, but like not in like a slasher kind of way, more in like a stalker kind of way, where Rebecca Hall plays this woman who's very in control. I believe she's a lawyer, if not works for a law firm or has some kind of like uptight job. I don't remember exactly. And uptight job. I don't know. She's just very tightly
Mhm.
wound person. And has an important job. She has a teenage daughter that she's very overprotective about. They live in New York or some major city. And she generally has life under control. And then Tim Roth shows up. And Tim Roth is from her past. And she does not like him. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She cannot figure out where he came from. Like he was out of her life and now he's not. And she seems to be way overreacting to the presence of this person. And the story goes from there, right? The question is she overreacting? Is she having like paranoid delusions? And this is just a normal dude who she's freaking out over for no reason? Or is there some kind of something to this type of thing? And it's good. Like I said, there's nothing like fantastical or paranormal about this movie. It's all about like mind control and relationships and histories and yeah, that type of stuff. It's really well done. And Rebecca Hall has been in a couple of these types of movies recently, kind of these small, low budget, but like artful horror movies that seem to go direct to VOD or direct to streaming, and people don't really talk about them. And they're all totally watchable. And probably because she brings something to them that wouldn't be there without like a really good actor in the lead role. And she is generally really good, and she's really good in this. My number 2.
Was she in that Alzheimer's one that we saw?
I feel like that's true.
Okay, I
What was
think
the name of that movie?
I don't remember. Where they're in the house. It's the mom, her, who assumes Rebecca Hall, and then the daughter,
Alzheimer horror movie.
or dementia. I don't know if that's.
The Taking of Deborah Logan.
Nope,
No.
that's not it.
Relic.
Yes, Relic.
Relic film. Relic film 2020. Nope, that was Emily Mortimer.
Emily Mortimer. Oh, okay, another brunette British woman.
Yep. There's a lot of them. I just went to the wrong Rebecca Hall. It doesn't matter.
Anyway,
she was in this one. She was in The Night House, I think is what it's called.
okay.
And something else that I'm forgetting that was also good. She's gonna be in the Godzilla versus Kong sequel in 2024.
Oh well, she's in those movies anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, she's a good actress. Like I definitely like her, and I went to go add this to my watch list, and it's already on there. So just need to wait for it to stream somewhere.
Nice. She was in The Dinner. That's another one.
Okay.
That's good. Have you ever seen Christine?
No, that's about the news anchor, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
If you are in a Rebecca Hall jag, definitely add Christine to the list.
So there is Christine, which is the dramatized version, and then there's the documentary, and they came out around the same time. Is one better than the other? Are they complementary to each other?
I mean, Christine is just straight drama where you follow around Christine.
Okay.
And it's kind of a. Did you ever watch The Last Days, which was Gus Van Sant's kind of like
Kurt Cobain-ish movie.
Kurt
Yeah,
Cobain-ish
no.
movie? It's kind of like that where you're following around. It's kind of giving you hints of motivation as far as what's about to transpire, but not. It's more like day in the life of type of stuff.
Okay.
Whereas the documentary interviews everybody that survived the events.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so it's like their perspective on what was happening. So just two very different ways of going at the same topic.
All right.
I like Christine a lot though, and Rebecca Hall's amazing in it.
I do like Rebecca Hall.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll think about it.
All right.
All right. My number 2 is a movie. I'm going to use movie in quotation marks from 1964 because this is actually more just concert footage, but it's amazing concert footage called The Tammy Show. And Tammy is an acronym for Teenage Awards Music International.
Okay.
And this was a concert put on 1964 in the Santa Monica area for 2 nights, and it was filmed. And it was filmed on this new style of filmmaking that gives you like a high resolution called like electronovision or something like that. So this footage looks amazing. Like I watched this on YouTube. It's free on YouTube, and it looks great on YouTube because it was filmed with a high res, filmmaking style, or sorry, film print from 60 years ago. So the Tammy Show is a 2-night concert that brought together some of like the biggest rock and roll acts of the early 60s. And when I list this, you'll see what I mean by the biggest. So you've got Chuck Berry performed at this. Leslie Gore, who sang like It's My Party, performed at this. The Beach Boys performed. Diana Ross and the Supremes performed. The Rolling Stones performed.
Never heard of him.
You never heard of the Rolling Stones, exactly, right? And then James Brown, right? Amongst other people, right? You've heard of him.
Sure.
So, like, if you like this era of music, of like 60s music, just as rock and roll starting to really take off, also this transition from like, you have, rock and roll started predominantly with African American artists, and that's kind of transitioning to white artists, even these African American artists are still around. So the fact that this concert series recognized like, hey, we can have the Beach Boys and Chuck Berry, like they can share the same stage. They don't have to be exclusive, or we don't have to pretend like the Beach Boys didn't steal their sound from Chuck Berry. Like we can have Diana Ross and the Supremes and Leslie Gore on the same stage. We don't need to pretend like, this music was only invented 5 years ago, because it wasn't. So it feels progressive in that aspect. But the clear, if there's any reason to watch this concert footage, and even if you don't care about the rest of it, there's any reason to seek out just this portion on YouTube, it's the James Brown performance. So James Brown was just breaking out as a solo artist, and he was booked for this concert, and he was told that he was going second to last with the Rolling Stones closing. And James Brown was pissed, and he even famously said, no one follows James Brown. Like I am the closing act. Even the Rolling Stones were like, we don't want to follow him. they weren't even cool about it. So James Brown decided that he was going to put on his greatest performance ever, just to prove like, I'm James Brown, you don't follow me. And he performs for almost 20 minutes, and he does not stop for 20 minutes. Like he is singing, he is dancing. If you want to see like proto Michael Jackson dancing, moonwalking, James Brown's doing it. The Cape Act, which he's famous for, the whole idea of like he just can't go on anymore. He collapses, and his band puts the cape on him, then he stands back up. He premieres that act at this concert, and he drags it out for like 5 minutes. There's just 5 minutes of him like collapsing
rolling around.
Or they put the cape
over.
on, and he like pops up, and then he sings, and he collapses again. And like he's milking this crowd for everything they have.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets to the end, he gets this huge standing ovation, everyone's cheering, and then like these pasty Rolling Stones come out, and there's like they're deer in headlights, like what are we doing right now?
Huh.
So yeah, but even aside from just that performance, I think the whole thing is worth seeing because it's just incredible music from this early rock and roll era.
Sure. So they have like the full James Brown performance in it?
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, all 18 minutes, and you can find just that performance on YouTube if you wanted, if you didn't want to watch the entire thing. But I mean, this is something where you can put this on in the background. Like I was definitely watching this while I was working,
Mhm.
and I was checking in now and then. And then when James Brown came on, I stopped working and I just focused on James Brown.
You couldn't look away at that
I couldn't
point?
look away from this. But for the rest of it, it's mostly like you can just kind of listen to the singing and sort of check in. Visually, there's not a ton going on all the time.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I will check it out. Sounds like my kind of thing to watch in the background.
I really had you in mind as I was watching this. Like, this is right up James's alley.
Sure. Yeah. I'm down. All right. My number one most favoritist film out of the last 10 I watched is pretty easily 3,000 Years of Longing from 2022.
Oh, you liked this.
I'm kind of bummed that we didn't talk about this as
Really?
like a main episode on the show. I probably should have fought for it harder, but I knew that you guys weren't into it.
Okay.
it would have been an uphill battle to get you to go to a theater to see this, I imagine. Yeah, I really like this movie. I know that's not a super popular opinion as well. Like I know a lot of people are mixed. I don't know too many people who like have talked out against this movie. Like they dislike it. I just think most people are nonplussed by it. And I like messy movies, and I think this is a pretty messy movie, but one that really swings for the fences and has interesting things to say. Maybe not from like a storyline or like certainly not a social issue movie or anything like that. It's just a super specific high budget fantasy film experience that we don't get very often. So the context here is George Miller, the guy who directed Mad Max Fury Road. He directed that in 2014, I think, or maybe 15.
2015, yeah.
2015. So now we're looking at 7 years later. He finally does a follow-up, which is normal George Miller stuff. He does not make a lot of movies, but so this is his follow-up of sorts to Fury Road, which a lot of people really liked. And I was curious about it because of that one reason, basically. Other than that, I knew nothing about it. The poster's weird. Didn't know what it was about. Turns out it's about a genie played by Idris Elba who gets rubbed by an author, normal British woman in modern times, played by what's her name?
Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton.
Okay.
And so she gets 3 wishes. And so the vast majority of the movie is them in a hotel room, Idris Elba looking like a genie, and them having discussions about love and life and flashing back to the genie's life over the hundreds and hundreds of years that he's lived and all these people that he's served over time. And how like the movie kind of starts with the idea that like she is too smart to waste her wishes. Like she has heard the idea of be careful what you wish for. So she's like, I'm going to be very careful with my wishes because I know that you genies are little tricksters and you like to get people to wish for things. And then turns out that's not what they really wanted type of thing. So I'm going to save my wishes type of thing. And so the movie kind of follows this very familiar fantasy film formula. They're telling these little mini stories that fill out the character of the genie itself. And then also you're dealing with this relatively uptight author woman who's never had like a real love in her life, who kind of over the course of the movie falls in love with the genie. And um because of like the short story nature of it, there's just a lot of people in the movie, not even like well-known people, just a lot of like these little mini stories that are their own fantasy stories in themselves. They're all like presented as fables with like narrating, and yeah, it's just a very unique movie. And I understand why people passed it by and didn't really latch themselves to it, but I think I definitely did. I was just like kind of mesmerized by it. And it's another one that just is not, it's not a movie you can convince teenagers to go to. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. They're
And
not
so I
gonna-
think that's why it just didn't get any attention. And because it didn't get any attention, then the people that will like this movie probably didn't even hear about it. Hopefully they will down the line. It'll be discovered as it hits streaming services, I guess. That's where things get discovered these days. But I liked it a lot, and gave it 4.5 stars. It'll probably be in my top 20 at the end of the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long is it?
Long.
Okay.
Or at least it felt long.
Okay.
Let's see. 108 minutes. Not long.
Not long, but
felt
you,
long.
you felt all 108 of those minutes.
Felt long, not in like a bad way, just in like for 108 minutes, they crammed a lot of story
Okay.
in 108 minutes.
You think then it would feel quick then if they covered so much ground in 108 minutes?
I didn't feel quick because there's like 5 or 6 stories.
Huh.
So it moved fast, but felt like there was a lot to it. Maybe that's why it felt long to me. It's also like Idris Elba in this movie is like nothing you've never seen Idris Elba be. Watching this around the same time I watched Beast
Yeah.
was like whiplash, because in Beast he's a guy fighting a lion, and in this one he's literally a genie.
Is it one of those one for me, one for them situations?
I don't know. I don't know how you even convince him to be the guy in this movie. Like, this is one of those where you'll watch it and you'll be like, oh, Idris Elba is weirder than I thought he was. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the fact that he agreed to do this, I think says something about him. Like, maybe this cost him the James Bond role in the long run.
Oh, I think he's moved on from James Bond.
I think he has too.
Yeah,
but-
I honestly, I think he's better than that.
Oh, if they offered it to him, he's taking it.
You think so?
I would. Why wouldn't you?
I don't know if he needs to take it anymore.
He never needed to take it.
Yeah.
He should take it because it should be his.
Now, he-
Everybody knows it. Why are we even having this conversation anymore? He should already be James Bond.
Right.
Everybody but the people who own James Bond agree to this.
He would be doing them a favor by taking that.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your number one?
My number one is a previously mentioned movie from one of your lists. Or from your list.
Oh, okay.
from
Did I
2022.
recommend this or did I hate it?
This is in the middle for you.
Okay.
I was quite quiet while you talked about this movie.
All right.
This is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Oh, you mean from this list,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're the young guy who gets it, and I'm the old guy that doesn't.
Oh
I
yeah,
get it.
because
All
you
right.
know me. I'm so close to Gen Z. Me and those Zoomers were just
Yep.
like tight. Is that what they say? Are they tight, or is that a '90s term?
I think that's a 90s. term.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So I'm not gonna re-summarize this movie because you already have done a good job. This is a slasher-ish movie,
Mhm.
a horror movie. It takes place in a single location, in a house. A bunch of, I would say, friends or a friendship group. They're having a party because there's a hurricane coming through, so they're just gonna ride out the hurricane. And then the power goes out, and then the horror slasherness ensues, and it kind of becomes a paranoid horror movie where they quickly turn on each other to try and figure out who the killer is amongst this group. And there's so much. You realize how awful they are as friends, where this friendship is very surface level, and the minute things turn, they're sniping at each other and they are throwing things in each other's face, and there's definitely some satirizing of sort of the Gen Z lingo going on through this movie. Though I didn't feel like this movie was satirizing like just the entire Gen Z generation, but more like a very specific kind of Zoomer, or a very specific way that they're portrayed in the media. Maybe it's even more satirizing the media portrayal of Gen Z, and not so much the actual generation itself.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but do you think the ending is like on a commentary on people's perception of people that age, or do you think it's literally saying that they're dumbasses?
I think it's a perception.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. I think this movie. So you said that maybe this movie would have worked better if it was directed by a young director. And
Right.
I think this movie is better because it is directed by I guess 46 would be probably a Gen Xer at this point.
I mean, I'm 44. I'm not a Gen Xer, but it's very on the edge.
It's very on the edge between millennial and Gen X, right?
Right.
I mean, you have, if you're 46 and you're looking at 22-year-olds, like, oh man, those kids. So I think maybe this movie is from the perspective, obviously the director is in on it, but of like, this is how, people in their 40s look at the Gen Z generation and like the lingo they use and their kind of nihilistic attitudes towards everything. I
just think it's interesting. Again, no spoilers,
Yeah.
but like you compare Scream, which is a Gen X horror movie,
correct. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you consider where Scream goes, and then you consider where this movie ends. And I think there's some commentary there that, like, in Scream, there's motivations for what happens.
Mhm.
And in Bodies, what happens in the end. That motivated the entire movie.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's just so different
Well-
than Scream, I'll say.
And I think it's maybe the vapidness of the friends is what motivated the whole movie,
Sure.
and how they're not actually good friends or even good people. Like one complaint I've heard about this movie is like, oh, no one's likable. I think it's kind of the point. And like even the Rachel Sennett character, who is correct by far the best character or the best performance, she's also the worst of all of them.
Sure.
Right. Like,
I mean, the only good character is the old guy.
yeah. Lee Pace. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Also from a filmmaking perspective, like this whole movie takes place in a rather large, I don't call it a mansion, but it's like a large vacation home.
It's a McMansion.
It's a McMansion, true.
Right.
And once the power goes out, it's all lighted by either like their glow necklaces or their cell phones, which is interesting. Like their phones are on the entire time. I'm sure it's a commentary also to like the reliance on phones. But I never, ever got a sense of the layouts of this house. And I think that was the point. Like it seems to be there was just constant stairwells and narrow hallways, and I didn't know like how many floors are in this house, how many stairwells are there, how many rooms are there, and I think for me it did a good job of disorienting me, where I never quite knew where anyone was in the house because of you're never given a layout, it's never shot in daylight, it's always nighttime, it's always lit dimly. There's a basketball court in the house.
Yeah, there's literally an indoor basketball court.
Yeah. And there's like exit signs, which I thought was odd in the house too.
Sure. Well, depending on the size of the room, you have to put exit signs.
But some of them seem like to be at the end of hallways. There was like the basketball court made sense. There's an exit sign, but like hallway. But again, that just kind of added to the whole mystery of the location for me. So yeah, this movie worked for me. I was looking forward to this movie, and it met my expectations. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. I don't get it. I mean, I got it. I just not on board.
Oh, okay, boomer.
That's fine. You can like it.
It's
I don't
okay
have a
to like
problem with other
movie.
people liking it. I'm excited that one of us liked it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming other people like it. I just want to know.
Here's the question: will Zach like this movie? You've seen it. I've seen it. We both have our opinions.
Do you think Zach will ever watch this movie?
I think he would.
He will if we come hard at him in like a year or two. He'll get around to it, but
Oh yeah, he's not gonna watch. He's not gonna go to the theater to see it.
I don't think he's rushing to see
No.
Bodies.
No.
I think he probably sees it as like another slice movie, like another A24 horror movie that, somebody's going to make him watch and he won't care.
Nah, I think it's better than that.
All right. I mean, I think it's better than Slice for sure. Slice was not a good movie. Bodies got a 3 for me, which is better than average. It's just not what I'm looking for in my top tier horror type stuff. Cool. Well, that was our top 10, last 10. We didn't even mention it, but Zach's not here.
Oh yeah, Zach, you want to chime in? That'd be funny if he'd like to say, "Hey, thanks guys. Can I go to my list now?"
If you hadn't noticed, Zach's not here. So Kyle and I are soloing this one. Hopefully that was a good listen, even without Zach here.
This seems like the perfect time to discuss the passing of Jean-Luc Godard. Zach's not here. Let's talk about him. Not Zach, but Jean-Luc Godard.
Oh, okay. You're joking, right? Because I don't know much about Jean.
Exactly. That's like Zach's favorite director.
Right.
And you know nothing about him, and I've seen 2 of his movies, and I'm fine on him. So,
I mean, let's pull it up on Letterboxd. What have I seen from
Jean-Luc Godard? I don't think you've seen any of his movies.
I thought I seen at least one by now, but we'll see. Jean-Luc. There's an account called Gen Z Jean-Luc Godard on Letterboxd. And evidently I can't spell his name.
Godard.
I have nothing from him marked.
I have. Oh, these are actor. Make sure you have director pulled up because he stars a lot. He not stars. He's in a lot of his movies also.
He's in a lot of his own movies.
Like when I click on Godard, he comes up as actor first. Then I have to change to director.
I just clicked a list of all his movies.
Oh, okay.
I've watched 1 out of 43. So evidently I have. I've watched Pierre Le Fou.
Pierre Le Fou is one you've seen. Yep, that's right.
That's the one I've seen. I didn't like it. I think I didn't like it because I think part of it was Zach telling me I would really like it.
Okay.
And I saw it and I was like, what about this am I supposed to really like?
Where is the joy, Zach? The one you? I think you should try then is Alphaville.
That's relatively recent, right?
I mean, if by 1964 you mean relatively recent,
okay. Then I'm confusing it with something else.
Okay.
Okay, I see Alphaville.
Yeah. Alphaville is a parody of spy movies, or it's a satire, I should say. But it's also a simplified version of spy movies. And here's something that'll make you appreciate it more. The actor they have playing the main character is playing a similar character to like a TV show he's famous for. So it's like, imagine you get Peter Falk to play a character called Columbo in a movie that's satirizing the idea of detective mysteries. So go into that knowing that the actor is playing a version of a character he's famous for playing on TV. Even though you don't know French TV from the 60s.
So it's a loopy movie. It's like a head trip a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I would say I would watch that before like Breathless, which is he's probably most famous for Breathless. That's like his big French new wave movie.
You don't like Breathless?
It was fine. I remember so little about it. There's a lot of talking and sunglasses and cigarettes and convertibles. Like one time Zach was discussing the plot of it. I'm like, I don't remember any of this, Zach.
I think I have think I have Breathless and Vivre sa vie. Vivre sa vie. I think I have those on Criterion, and I haven't watched them yet.
Yeah, I think like so many of his movies are on Criterion. Contempt is the other one I do want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a director I want to see more of, but so far I'm fine with and one I liked.
Cool.
So good riddance, Godard.
Pierre LaFou. Ouch. Pierre LaFou didn't inspire a bunch of a marathon of Jean-Luc Godard films, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's something you have to kind of spread out.
Sure.
But put Alphaville on the list.
All right.
You might like that one.
Will do. I'm adding it right now.
No promises.
Watch listing Alphaville. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Cinereelists podcast. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. We forgot to do that at the beginning, too.
Oh, my goodness.
There's a video version of the podcast on YouTube. You could support us on Patreon. We'd appreciate that. You could leave us an Apple Podcast review, 5 stars only, or you could send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. You could recommend a movie to us, and we would watch it, just like we did with like good 3 or 4 listener suggestions that we talked about this session. So yeah, send us an email, heyguys@cinereelists.com. You could also follow us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok @Cinereelists, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account @YoJRB.
You can find me on Letterboxd @PeterSKB.
We'll be back next week with something great, I'm sure.
It always is.
Zach will probably be back. Don't worry. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.